Formula One is entering one of the biggest regulation resets in its history. Lighter cars, smaller dimensions, and a massive shift toward electric power have forced engineers to rethink everything they once knew about performance. In moments like this, the pecking order can be torn apart and legends can be reborn. Right now, all eyes are locked onto Aston Martin, because behind this shocking new machine stands Adrian Newey, the mastermind behind some of the most dominant cars F1 has ever seen. From Williams' glory days to Red Bull's modern dominance, wherever Newey goes, championships tend to follow. When the AMR26 finally emerged from Aston Martin's garage at the Barcelona shakedown, it instantly became the most talked-about car in the paddock. While other teams rolled out relatively conservative interpretations of the new 2026 regulations, Newey's machine looked like it belonged to a different era of engineering thinking. The unique engine cover sculpting, the unconventional side pod channels, and most striking of all, the radical suspension layout immediately drew crowds of engineers, photographers, and rival team members. James Vowles, the Williams team principal, could barely hide his amazement. He described Newey's wishbone placement as something that almost shouldn't work on paper, yet somehow existed within the regulatory framework. It wasn't just innovative, it was provocative. It challenged decades of aerodynamic norms and hinted that Aston Martin had discovered a completely new way to manipulate airflow around the car. This is where Adrian Newey's genius has always lived. While most designers optimize individual components, Newey approaches the car as a flowing aerodynamic ecosystem. According to him, the AMR26 was built from a holistic perspective, starting with mass distribution across the wheelbase, then carefully shaping the suspension geometry to influence airflow, followed by a radically reworked nose, front wing, side pods, and rear packaging. The result is Aston Martin's most tightly packaged Formula One car ever. Tight packaging is not just about aesthetics. In modern F1, compact bodywork allows airflow to remain cleaner, faster, and more controllable toward the rear diffuser, the primary source of downforce. Every millimeter saved can translate into tenths of a second per lap. The extreme suspension angles on the AMR26 appear to serve a dual purpose, mechanically supporting the car while also acting as aerodynamic flow guides. Instead of simply being structural elements, they become tools to shape air movement, something Newey has mastered throughout his career. Yet despite how revolutionary it looks, Newey himself insists the car is not aggressive. In his view, this design is simply the logical outcome of interpreting the new regulations in the way he believes best suits performance. He acknowledges that some features have never been seen before, but he sees them not as risks, but as natural solutions to new aerodynamic challenges. Still, behind this confident philosophy lies enormous uncertainty. With an entirely new set of technical rules, no team truly knows what the optimal concept is. The 2026 regulations represent one of the biggest resets in Formula One history. Lighter cars, smaller dimensions, drastically altered aerodynamics, and a power unit relying far more heavily on electrical energy. These changes effectively wipe the slate clean. And when the slate is clean, bold thinking often creates dominant eras, but bold thinking can also lead to catastrophic misjudgments. Newey openly admitted that Aston Martin's development program suffered a major setback due to their new wind tunnel coming online roughly 4 months late. That forced the team into a compressed development schedule, meaning many design decisions had to be locked in earlier than ideal, with less validation data than rivals may have had. In other words, Aston Martin had to commit to a philosophy before fully understanding whether it was right, and that is a massive gamble. George Russell was among the drivers most impressed by the AMR26's appearance, calling it the most standout car in the field. Yet he was also quick to inject realism into the hype. Formula One is not a beauty contest. Revolutionary shapes mean nothing if the car cannot produce consistent lap time. History is filled with visually stunning cars that failed miserably. At the same time, history also shows that regulation resets are where legends are born. In 2009, Brawn GP shocked the world with a clever aerodynamic interpretation and won both championships. In 2010, Red Bull unlocked a superior airflow concept and dominated the following years. In 2014, Mercedes nailed the hybrid power unit rules and crushed the competition for nearly a decade. Each of those moments came from teams that dared to interpret the rules differently, while others played it safe. And now Aston Martin appears to be placing itself in that same high-risk, high-reward category. What makes the situation even more intriguing is the overall structure now forming around the team. Adrian Newey is not just a consultant, he is effectively the technical leader shaping the future of the squad. Honda has joined as a works engine partner, bringing the same power unit expertise that carried Red Bull to 4 consecutive championships with Max Verstappen. And Fernando Alonso remains behind the wheel, bringing relentless competitiveness and technical feedback that few drivers can match. On paper, the ingredients for a breakthrough are all there. Yet, doubts remain. Aston Martin's recent trajectory has not inspired universal confidence. After a sensational start to 2023 with multiple podiums, the team slowly slid back towards the midfield in the following seasons. Development pace became an issue. Rivals out-upgraded them and strategic mistakes cost crucial points. The AMR26 therefore represents not just a new car but a turning point for the entire organization. If Newey's radical interpretation works, Aston Martin could instantly leap from midfield runners to genuine title contenders. They could disrupt the dominance of Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren, creating a multi-team championship battle unseen in years. But if the concept is flawed, the consequences could be severe. With such a tightly focused design philosophy, there may be limited flexibility to pivot if early performance is poor. Development under the cost cap is unforgiving. A wrong concept can trap a team in mediocrity for multiple seasons. The compressed development timeline adds significant risk. Newey acknowledged that the 4-month delay in their wind tunnel facility forced critical design decisions to be made earlier than optimal. Many design decisions had to be locked in earlier than ideal, with less validation data than rivals may have had. This means Aston Martin committed to their aerodynamic philosophy with less certainty than teams who had full access to their development tools throughout the entire design cycle. The AMR26 features unprecedented suspension geometry that serves dual functions. The extreme suspension angles on the AMR26 appear to serve a dual purpose, mechanically supporting the car while also acting as aerodynamic flow guides. Instead of simply being structural elements, they become tools to shape air movement. This represents a fundamental departure from traditional Formula One design thinking, where suspension primarily handles mechanical loads and aerodynamics are managed separately. Newey's holistic approach differentiates the AMR26 from every other car on the grid. According to him, the AMR26 was built from a holistic perspective, starting with mass distribution across the wheelbase, then carefully shaping the suspension geometry to influence airflow, followed by a radically reworked nose, front wing, side pods, and rear packaging. This systems-level thinking means that no component exists in isolation. Each element influences and optimizes every other element in a carefully orchestrated aerodynamic symphony. The tight packaging achieved on the AMR26 sets a new benchmark for the team. In modern F1, compact bodywork allows airflow to remain cleaner, faster, and more controllable toward the rear diffuser, the primary source of downforce. Every millimeter saved can translate into tenths of a second per lap. This principle has driven Formula One design for decades, but Newey has taken it to an extreme on the AMR26, creating Aston Martin's most tightly packaged Formula One car ever. The 2026 power unit regulations fundamentally change how teams approach car design. The power unit relies far more heavily on electrical energy compared to previous hybrid systems. This shift affects weight distribution, cooling requirements, packaging constraints, and overall aerodynamic philosophy. Teams must balance electrical efficiency with aerodynamic performance in ways never before required in Formula One history. Aston Martin's partnership with Honda represents a critical component of their championship ambitions. Honda brings the same power unit expertise that carried Red Bull to 4 consecutive championships with Max Verstappen. This proven track record suggests Aston Martin will not face power unit disadvantages that could compromise even the most brilliant chassis design. The Honda partnership provides the foundation upon which Newey's aerodynamic concepts can deliver maximum performance.